Welcome. In this video, we're diving into HTML form validation, specifically focusing on client-side validation using HTML5 attributes. With HTML5, you can validate forms directly in the browser without needing JavaScript. It offers built-in validation, better user experience, and improved performance. Let's start with the required attribute. The required attribute ensures that a form field must be filled out before the form can be submitted. It prevents form submission if a field is empty. The browser displays a built-in error message when a required field is left blank. It works with most input types and text areas. It is a simple Boolean attribute, meaning no value is needed. Here's an example. The code shows a form with a label for username and an input field of type text. The required attribute is added to the input tag. There's also a submit button within the form. HTML5 input types provide built-in validation features. Let's look at some common input types. First, the email input type validates that the input is a properly formatted email address. Next is the URL input type. It ensures the input is a properly formatted URL. The number input type accepts only numerical input values. The telephone input type is for telephone numbers, and it often requires a pattern attribute for more specific validation. The date input type provides a date picker with built-in validation. Finally, the color input type provides a color picker with valid color values. The min, max, and step attributes provide constraints for numerical input types like number, range, date time local, month, time, and week. The min attribute specifies the minimum value allowed. The max attribute specifies the maximum value allowed. The step attribute specifies the legal number intervals. Here is an example. The code shows a number input for quantity, with the minimum value set to 1 and the maximum value set to 10, and the step set to 1. Additionally, there's a date input for an appointment, with the minimum date set to January 1st, 2023 and the maximum date set to December 31st, 2023. The pattern attribute specifies a regular expression that the input's value must match to be valid. It works with text, telephone, email, URL, password, and search inputs. It uses JavaScript regular expression syntax. The browser shows an error if the input doesn't match the pattern. The pattern attribute can be combined with other validation attributes. Always include a title attribute to explain the expected format to users when using pattern validation. For example, the code shows a text input for username with a pattern that allows only letters, numbers, and underscores. The title attribute provides a user-friendly message explaining the username requirements. Another example shows a telephone input with a pattern for a United States phone number format, including a title explaining the expected format. Control the length of text input by specifying the minimum and maximum number of characters allowed using the MinLength and MaxLength attributes. The MinLength attribute specifies the minimum number of characters required. The MaxLength attribute limits the maximum number of characters allowed. Some use cases include username requirements, such as at least 5 characters, password strength, such as a minimum of 8 characters, and character limits for text fields, such as Twitter's 280 characters. For example, the code shows a username input with a minimum length of 5 and a maximum length of 20. It also shows a password input with a minimum length of 8 and a text area for a message with a maximum length of 280 characters. The multiple and size attributes enhance select and file input elements to allow multiple selections and control visual size. The multiple attribute allows users to select more than one option in select elements or multiple files in file inputs. The size attribute specifies the number of visible options in a select element. For example, the code shows a file input with the multiple attribute, allowing users to upload multiple photos. It also shows a multiple select element for languages, with the size attribute set to 4, displaying 4 options at a time. The placeholder and title attributes provide helpful hints and information to users. The placeholder provides a hint that describes the expected value of an input field, and it disappears when the user starts typing. The title provides additional information about an element, typically displayed as a tooltip when hovering over the element. Some best practices include keeping placeholder text concise and helpful, using the title to explain validation requirements, and not relying on the placeholder for critical information. For example, the code shows an email input with a placeholder showing an example email address, and a title explaining that the user should enter a valid email address. There's also a password input with a placeholder and a title explaining the password requirements, and a telephone input with a placeholder, a pattern for the phone number format, and a title explaining the format. The Novalidate attribute is a Boolean attribute that, when present, specifies that the form should not be validated when submitted. Use cases include when you want to implement custom JavaScript validation instead of browser validation, for forms that need to allow intentionally invalid data, for example, drafts, and when server-side validation is preferred over client-side validation. Remember, even with Novalidate, you should still implement server-side validation for security. Here's an example. The code shows a form with the Novalidate attribute. It contains an email input with the required attribute. There's also a JavaScript section that prevents the default form submission and allows for custom validation logic to be added. Here are some best practices for form validation to enhance user experience. Combine client and server validation. Always implement server-side validation as a security measure, even when using HTML5 validation. Provide clear error messages. Use the title attribute in custom validation messages to explain what went wrong. Validate in real time. Use JavaScript to provide instant feedback as users type, not just on submission. Use appropriate input types. Choose the right input type for the data you're collecting to leverage built-in validation. Combine multiple attributes. Use multiple validation attributes together for more comprehensive validation. Ensure accessibility. Make sure validation errors are accessible to all users, including those using screen readers. HTML5 form validation provides a powerful built-in way to improve data quality and user experience, but it should be part of a comprehensive validation strategy. If you like this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Visit codelucky.com for more such useful content.